Dave, you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please welcome the Leominster High School varsity football team, Leominster Blue Devils, on a streak right now. Conor, come right up and walk right through the stage, please. Woo! Are they win 4 in a row? 4 in a row. As we know, this team is 4 in a row on a roll right now, and they're looking for one more, the 5th. Hi, Jimmy. Come on up. Let's go. Good luck. Come on, man. One more game. What are you going to do? Thanks, guys. Thanks. Let's go, guys. Come on, one more. You got one more in you? You got one more, right? Let's go. Let's go. Congratulations. Happy Thanksgiving. Come on, guys. One more. One more. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Have a good game, guys. Have a good game. There you are, folks, from the High School Blue Devils. One more big game for them coming up. If any of you football players like to see this program, take a seat, hang around. If you need a ride, you gotta go home. You're welcome to stay if you want to stay and see the presentations going on this evening.
It's going to interfere with our speaker.
Jane, I might need you. Yes. At this time, Mark Bedanza is going to start announcing the 2 signature awards that we give out as the Hall of Fame Committee, and that is the Ray Comerford Award, and then lastly, the very coveted Lou Little Award. Right now, I'm going to hand it over to Mark.
Thank you, Gil. A number of years ago, the committee decided to create a couple of awards for high school football seniors to connect the heritage of Leominster football to the current Leominster football players and note that tradition and heritage. So we picked or created over the course of the years 2 awards. The second award is what we're going to announce first, and that's called the Ray Comerford Award. A little bit of background on this award. Ray Comerford was the coach at Leominster High School and started in 1927. When he took over the program, Leominster had very precious little success for more than a decade and a half. In fact, the only time they beat Fitchburg since 1913 had been in 1925. His first year didn't go all that well. He lost 64-0 to Fitchburg, which is the greatest disparity in the history of the series, still remains so. But then he came back in 1928 and 1929, won close games against Fitchburg, which was the first time since 1913 and 1912 that Leominster won back-to-back. They played a thrilling game in Fitchburg in 1930 where they lost 6-0, but they knew that there was something special coming the next year because in 1931 Doyle Field opened. Many of you may know that in all of the games between 1918 and 1930, the competition at Thanksgiving was at Crocker Field. Fitchburg wouldn't play on the substandard field that Leominster had behind the old high school on West Street. So it was a very exciting game, very exciting year. They knew that they were moving into this beautiful venue that Bernard Doyle donated to the city, and everybody was pretty high about Leominster football. In August of 1931, in preparation for that new season, Coach Comerford went to the seashore and was relaxing, knowing that he was getting ready for some arduous work. And he heard a young boy get caught in the undertow. So he jumped into the water, swam out to the young man, caught him, tried to swim him back to shore. He tired and called for help himself. 2 other men went into the water. One grabbed the coach, one grabbed the young man. Thankfully, the young man was saved, but Coach Comerford was not. and he drowned. It was a devastating thing to the city of Leominster, and the Sentinel recognized that Coach Comerford died the way he lived, aiding the young. And we didn't want that to be forgotten. It affected the city, it affected the football team. I had the privilege of meeting some folks that played for Coach Comerford, and they all said he was a great human being. So the genesis of this award is to give it to a young man who's not a starter, might play some, but is certainly not going to be reading his name every Saturday morning in the newspaper as a result of his football exploits. But he's going to be a young man of great character. He's going to be a great teammate. He's going to be the type of person that does all the things that he's asked to do. And he's going to be the type of kid that gives back to the community now during his high school years and, of course, in the future. So we thought this was an important award, an important way to recognize and build that bridge between the current football players and the great heritage of this program. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Gil so that he can announce this year's winner and describe a little bit about this wonderful young man.
Thank you, Mark. So as Mark stated, this gentleman that we're going to introduce was picked after much scrutiny by us and feedback from Coach Palazzi and from our committee of advisory committee members, that we sit down and discuss the nature of this young man and the characteristics that we're looking for. And we are very happy to announce this year's recipient is Anthony Larson. Would you please come up? Anthony is a high school senior going on to maybe Norwich Academy or Bridgeton Academy. We hope he has a successful career. As you can see in the previous winners, his name is permanently affixed to this plaque, which is will hang in the Leominster Football Hall of Fame as soon as we get it built, but we're working on it. Let's take it back and show the parents. I'll get it for you later. Yeah, go ahead. Way to go, Anthony. This young man jumps in at any play, at any position, is quick to volunteer, is a good teammate. What? Something to point out, that this young man, his nature is not to quit. This year, despite having a tough beginning of the year, he hung in, he didn't quit. He's now a starter. It's commendable. Okay, next is going to be a little award, a little history on that.
So the first award that we actually established as a committee back, I believe in 2011, was the Lou Little Award. And for those of you who are not well steeped in the tradition or history of Lou Little was a player at Leominster High School back in 1910, 1909. A great high school football player that went on and is one of the few people to actually have taken a snap in the NFL, where he played in the nascent league back in 1920 and 1921. But more importantly, he went on to a career where he coached at Columbia University for more than a generation and created an incredible program at Columbia that ultimately led to his induction into the College Football Hall of Fame. One of his notable accomplishments was in 1933, January 1st of 1934, actually, after the 1933 season. Back in those days, The Rose Bowl, believe it or not, was the only college football bowl game. And not until the following year and succeeding years were other bowl games introduced. So in those days, the Pac-10 champion was allowed to introduce or invite their competition. And they first invited Michigan, which was the unofficial national champion that year. Michigan didn't want to sully that reputation, and they declined. They then invited the Princeton Tigers, who were undefeated. They didn't want to sully that record, and they declined. And then they invited Columbia. A lot of the football pundits at the time thought Columbia would lose the game by 30 or 40 points. They also believed that Columbia, being a bastion of academia, didn't want to get involved in big-time college football, looked down on it, really. But Coach Little and many of the supporters of the program convinced the dean and the administration to allow Columbia to compete in this game. They went out on a train to California and played Stanford, and you can probably guess the rest of the story. Recorded one of the greatest upsets in college football history, beating Stanford 7-0 in the Rose Bowl. Now, you have to understand that in 1934, professional football was not as we know it today. In fact, college football was far more preeminent. This game, the Rose Bowl, was like the Super Bowl is today. So winning that game was a big deal. When he went to when he did his post-game press conference, Lou Little, first words that came out of his mouth were, "I want to say hello to all my friends back in Leominster." Legend has it that you could hear the crowd in Leominster, who were all in their homes against the January cold. You could hear a collective cheer go up through the entire community. It was that kind of a thing. When he came back several days later to be feted here in Leominster, they closed the factories, they closed the schools, the church bells went off, the parade route was lined from here to Worcester. He came back as a native son and a hero. He was a great coach, but in some ways, one of his most important legacies, which included, he was on the committee that designed the Heisman Trophy, by the way, in 1935, along with John Heisman and John Crowley of Notre Dame Four Horsemen fame. He was known for treating the whole student. He was known for getting kids good educations at Columbia. And he got several Leominster boys scholarships to Columbia, and he had a great relationship with John Joyce, who some of us remember, was in the administration of Leominster High, and a lot of Leominster kids got great educations at Columbia as a result of Lou Little, who became known as the coach of the era, and very well-respected man. So we should be proud of that heritage here in Leominster, and we felt the way to continue to recognize Lou Little was to give an award to a high school senior who epitomized those characteristics: a good teammate, a great player, somebody who put his teammates first, someone who put his community first, and someone who's a good student and embodies all of those things we want to see in scholar athletes. So it is a great award, and we take it very seriously. We vet these young men every year, and I think we're proud to say that we've had a really good group of young men win this award, and we're very proud of them. So I'm going to give you back to Gilly, who will announce this year's Lou Little Award winner.
Thank you. So when this award was first decided after the second year of our Hall of Fame, I asked Mark, we should have something that we give out in honor of some outstanding young man. And as you heard Mark say, that Lou Little was on the original committee that designed the Heisman. When I asked Mark, who would you think would be a recognizable figure that we would want some young men to emulate? And he immediately came up with Lou Little. Hence this trophy of which a name is on every year. That large one on the stand will also be placed in the Leominster Football Hall of Fame, which we're hoping to build as an addition to our locker room at Doyle Field. So from that point, we heavily scrutinized this individual with input, again, from Coach Palazzi, our committee. We talked to guidance counselors. We know what kind of student he is. We sort of try to get a pulse on this young man. And this young man this year is going to go home with this trophy, a duplicate, a replica of the Little award. You can get a chain for it if you want to wear it around your neck. Comes also. This year's recipient, we are proud to announce, is Conor Marchand. Conor said he'd like to say a few words.
I would just like to thank the Hall of Fame committee and my coaches for electing me as this year's recipient for the Little Award. I'm very thankful, honored, and humbled to receive such a prestigious award. I'll see you guys all at Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.
At this time, Mark has, we have a very special, dignified guest here this evening. Mark is going to explain the background of Lou D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Gil. As many of you may know, I've had developed a bit of a writing career over the last several years, and had a great honor to write about some fine individuals, including two Boston Celtic legends, JoJo White and Sam Jones, that more importantly became very dear friends of mine. And talk about examples to young people and to people in general. Sam one day recommended, well, we had a joint book signing between JoJo and Sam at the Boston Garden, and I met a man that evening who was with Satch Sanders, another Celtic legend, and I thought he was just coming to the book signing and getting Satch to say hello to Sam, but in fact he was looking for me to write his story. So I had a chance to meet a couple of weeks later with Senator D'Alessandro, who is the longest serving state senator in New Hampshire, and learn a little bit about his life and his story. And once again, I've been blessed not only to write the story, an important story of a wonderful person, but blessed to gain a friendship that endures each day of my life to my great benefit. I've learned a lot from all of the people that I've written about, and I've learned some valuable lessons. And you know, Lou's story kind of fits this evening pretty well, because he started off like a lot of us with some youthful exuberance, and he channeled that into ultimately a full NCAA scholarship to Colorado for football. And later on went on to a lifetime of not only playing sports in college, but coaching college basketball and also coaching football. He was also a college president twice, a candidate for governor in New Hampshire twice, as I said, a long-serving U.S. State senator rather, and has had an amazing career in New Hampshire. And we've asked him to say a couple words this evening, and Senator D'Alessandro, can I ask you to come up?
Well, thank you very much, Mark. You're very generous. First of all, to the boys who just won the awards, hearty congratulations. It's a wonderful honor, I'm sure well deserved, and I know that you'll do well in the Thanksgiving game against Pittsburgh. So all the best in that regard. I've been the beneficiary of some wonderful things in my life. The first most important thing was marrying my wife, who was my college sweetheart. We were married when I was a senior at the university, and it's been a great, great life. The mother of our 3 children. We have 9 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, so we're very blessed. Football played a very significant role in my life as a player and as a coach. And I said to the Dovzinski family, I coached against one's grandfather and one's father when I was coaching at Bishop Bradley High School. We played against Gardner at Gardner, I'll never forget the game. We lost 12-6. So memories fade, but they never disappear. They never disappear. As I said, football played a vital role in my life. I played with my brother throughout my college career. We played professionally together. We played for a team called the Lowell Giants, and we had a wonderful career. A wonderful career. But the most important thing is the life experience and the relationships that you foster as a player and take on for really the rest of your life. And as I said, I was blessed with some great teammates. And remember, there's no I in team. You got to do it together, and you can really make the difference. But I'm honored to be here. Frank Novak, who is a very, very good friend of mine, helped me in my college coaching career. Frank was at Northern Michigan University, and I was coaching basketball at New Hampshire College, which is now Southern New Hampshire University. He scheduled games for us with Eastern Michigan, with Northern Michigan, and with a number of teams in the Midwest, and he gave me an opening in terms of advancing my coaching career and giving my team and players an opportunity to play at the highest level. So I'm blessed to be here. I was here for Frank's inauguration into the Hall of Fame. And those of you who know Frank, he was a great player, but more than that, he was a great human being and a great, great friend. And years ago, I prepped at Worcester Academy, and I played with Dickie Como, the dentist Dickie Como with town here, and he's got 100 children. He was a quarterback on a team where we were the national prep school champions. We had a wonderful, wonderful team, and I know he came back. Lou Little got him into Columbia. He played at Columbia, and the story goes on. But again, many thanks for allowing me to come. It's a great, great feeling to see a town, a city, bring everything together. Because the one thing that life offers us is the ability to create relationships. They last for the rest of our lives. They're very meaningful. And these guys standing in the back will be the beneficiaries of that based on their participation in football, but more important, their academic life in high school and going forward. And the parents should be very, very proud. And come Thanksgiving Day, I always go to a game. I'm always there. And these guys will be there. And I wish all of you the best. I want you to have a great, great, great American Day. And stay happy, stay healthy, and keep the dream alive and well. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to begin the order of inductees at this time. And first one up is going to be inducting Jim Normandin. Could I please have Bob Sabatelli come up and do the induction honors on Jimmy's behalf.
Put that on there.
Okay, yes, sir.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank the committee for allowing me this opportunity to introduce this inductee this evening, and also want to congratulate the boys for their awards this evening. That's quite a thing. I think you should be very proud of yourselves as your parents and and all your relatives are. I don't know how many people knew it, but as a young principal in the Leominster public school system and a proud graduate of Leominster High School, I had the unique opportunity to witness our athletic program up close and personal. Many of my students went on to play for the high school in a number of sports, and I would follow their careers and closely and attend as many games as I could, cheering them on. The Normandin family lived close to my home, and my oldest son, Rob, and John Normandin were close friends throughout their lives. I got to know the whole family very well and watched them flourish in their athletic adventures. The entire family involved were involved in football program at the high school, starting with their dad, son Brian, Jim, John, and Uncle Frank, who is currently a member of the Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame. You could probably make a great case for any of them to be in some sort of hall for their performances on the field. I approached Mark and about nominating Jim Normandin and was asked to get a resume together for review. Of course, like all nominees, Jim was cool to the idea and very humble about his accomplishments, until I pointed out that our high school deserved to honor our great athletes like every other high school in the state. I'm not sure that he would have agreed to come this evening if it were not for our family friendship. But he is here tonight to accept this honor, and I am grateful for him coming this evening and very proud to be able to introduce you to him. Those of us who are in this room who understand the history of football program in this city can appreciate some of the accomplishments of Jim like no other group because of uniqueness and its success. Starting as a sophomore at right guard and nose tackle was practically unheard of in the 70s, let alone playing both ways. He was a punter and a kicker in his junior year and led LHS to an upset victory against Fitchburg at Crocker Field with a bone-jarring tackle on the goal line, and it was named one of the Holiday Heroes for his defensive efforts, forcing a record 8 quarterback sacks. The late Pete Bolio was quoted as saying once, "We never had a kid who had dominated the line of scrimmage the way he has, and that includes Charlie Kurak, who was a Leominster standout and played for Syracuse." Bolio went on to say that Jim earned 27 helmet stars for his 6 quarterback sacks, 5 forced fumble recoveries, 9 for causing fumbles, and 7 for knocking the lineman into the backfield, causing a play to break up or making a tackle for less than 3-yard gain. Chuck Stone, the sports writer for the local paper, was quoted as saying, "In all my years of covering schoolboy football, he never saw a defensive player disrupt opposing offenses as frequently and as convincingly as Jim did. A surefire college prospect for sure." Jim went on to get his accolades after accolades for play, including 2-time TNG Super All-Star team, both on offense and defense. One of the only repeaters of that particular year, and that was the year that Howie Long was on that particular team. 6-time TAG Player of the Week in 1976 and 1977, the William Lane Award recipient, Co-Lineman of the Year in 1976 with Dan Curley, Lineman of the Year in 1977, Dream Team Award winner in 1976 for the Fitchburg Sentinel, and highly recruited for UConn, Pittsburgh, Georgia, and the University of Maine. Jim not only starred in football, but was a success in baseball as a catcher, summed up very quickly by saying he was the only Leominster High School player named to the Central Mass All-Star team. By the way, Ron Darling was on that particular team. Those who played with Jim can tell you his doggedness, his competitiveness was never ending. He had a rocket arm behind the plate, and God help those who try to steal home for him. His success on the field now carries over, translated into his professional life, serving as a chief operating officer of the Union Leader Corporation and former publisher of the Worcester Telegram and Gazette. Jim is on a number of boards, number of organizations, educational organizations. He has been a success that can only be reached by his doggedness again and his competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the next inductee, Jimmy Normandin.
Set up my computer here, excuse me. While I'm doing this, we are very close to Veterans Day. I think we should recognize all the veterans in the room. Would you please stand? Thank you, Mr. Sabatelli. I'm not sure how to follow this up, but I am humbled by this honor. Thank you, Mark Bedanza. Thank you, Gilly Donatelli, and the LHS Football Hall of Fame Committee. Creating a platform like this to this coveted tradition is unheard of in many cities that I've lived in over my 30 years of leaving Leominster. And congratulations to my fellow inductees, Keith Robichaud, Dave Palazzi, David Molasses, David Dinsmore. If you don't believe in 2 degrees of separation, I ask you to reconsider. David Palazzi, David Molasses, Dave Dinsmore, we all grew up within 2 streets of one another. Congratulations to the 1988 LHS team, the honorees, Diane Flanagan, Mark Bedanza, Coach Stubzinski, who I had the pleasure of playing for. Your indelible contribution to carry on the spirit of this tradition, a torch that burns vibrantly bright. Thank you. And of course, our coaches, who my teammates and I revered as mentors, as teachers, as disciplinarians, as counselors, as friends. You provided a sanctuary where ethnicity, color, religion, economic status mattered not, and where respect trumped all. For me, your influence and encouragement made me a better teammate, a player, a competitor, a student, a person, and today and every day, I am grateful for the principles you instilled in me, and I am indebted and flushed with gratitude. Thank you. If any of the coaches are here this evening, as I read your name, would you please stand? Coach Haley. We know Coach Hannigan is not, but he is here in spirit. The late Coach Bolio, Coach Stubzinski. Thank you. Coach Mercier. I ran into him somewhere. Coach Bayette. I haven't seen him here tonight, but Coach Mazzaferro, Coach Gerard, Coach Maz, Coach Ferrellini, Coach Morse, Coach Starr, Coach Prietti, Coach Brusso, Coach LaBelle, Coach Bissett, Coach Horgan, Coach Ware, Coach Ciccolini. Where is he? He's here somewhere. Thank you. Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for the oxygen. Thank you for being who you are. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. Equally, thank you to my fellow teammates from LHS 75, 76, and 77 for the incredible memories. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have been on the Big Blue with each and every one of you. Thank you. Indeed, this is an honor. An honor here to be tonight to accept this award on behalf of my family, on behalf of my teammates, on behalf of this community. It was nearly 41 years, or more precisely, Thursday, November 24, 1977, since I played my last football game for Leominster High School. It was a sunny, bright, and brisk day. I remember the glory of a fiercely played competitive game. I remember Fitchburg, Super Bowl bound, showing up in shiny, new maroon and gray uniforms. I remember the crowd of nearly 5,000 cheering. I remember helmets, shirts, pants, smeared with other colors, not ours, theirs. I remember our final goal stance when Fitchburg was on the 3-yard line and stopping them dead on 4 straight plays to win the game, 7-0. But for all the things I can remember, I certainly cannot remember where the heck the game was played. I suppose the glory of winning a Turkey Day Classic far outweighed any memory of where we played it. The rivalry was fierce. It was big. It was tradition. If you will be kind enough to humor me just for a couple more minutes, I would like to share 3 lessons I gleaned from my experience at LHS football. These experiences are the impetus for my business success in a media world that's evolving and changing rapidly. On October 29, 1977, our record was 3-3. Our opponent this week was Brockton Boxers. This particular year, Brockton's defensive line weighed in at 1,642 pounds. 234 pounds per player. And their offensive line weighed in at 236. We had a few linemen tipping the scale at 200, maybe. Brockton was perfectly synchronized with their calisthenics, warm-up, formations, huddles, drills, a tactic they use to intimidate their opponents. After 48 minutes of bone-crushing, hard-nosed football and impeccable executed plays, we stunned the Brockton Boxers by defeating them in an emotional, victorious fashion, 14-9. The lesson? It matters not the size of the competitor in the challenge. Rather, it's the amount of heart the competitor asserts in the challenge. I can assure you, you will face very large challenges in your life. So if you want to succeed, bring your heart. At the time, LHS players would start the season by hopping on a bus and traveling to a remote destination to practice as a team for 7 days. Your days consisted of 3 physically grueling practice sessions, 3 horrible meals, 3 Tylenol, maybe salt pills, 3 hours of sleep, God willing. And on day 2 of camp, I was walking back from lunch, sporting flip-flops, shorts, and a t-shirt. It was smack in the middle of the college campus. Before I knew it, my shorts were down around my ankles. In today's era, that's called pantsed. Undaunted, I picked up my shorts, shook my head, chuckled, and moved on. The lesson? It matters not what happens to you. Rather, it's how you respond to what happens that will shape your future. I can assure you, you will be pantsed many times in your life. So if you want to succeed, pull up your pants, suck it up, and move on. One of the most humid summers that I can remember was my senior year. We were at New England College in the sleepy little town of Henniker, New Hampshire, for football camp. The grass long, the air hot and thick, and our dorm rooms even hotter. It was day 4. We were tired yet restless. Afternoon practice had concluded. We were in our dorm rooms attempting to wind down when the coaches began running the dorm halls, summoning us to the lower field with our cleats. Assembled in our typical Callistics fashion, we learned. 2 of our players were cited for streaking through the center of this sleepy little town. And for this indiscretion, we were summoned to do grass drills, also known as burpees. Exhausted, both physically and mentally, we persevered through the grueling period of hell. It felt like eternity, but we were stronger for it. The lesson: it matters not the actions of 1 or 2. Rather, it matters more the unity of all, for one is a team. I can assure you, you will do many burpees in your life. So if you want to succeed, you will need to sacrifice and persevere through the difficult times. Athleticism has not escaped our family, and tonight is a proud evening for our family. I represent the 4th member to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. The 3rd of my siblings. The first was my uncle Frank Armalotti, could not be here this evening. The second, here tonight with his wife Jan, my older brother Brian Normandin, an incredible wrestler and incredible tough lineman. Brian played on the LHS team to win a Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl, in 1973. Love you, Brian. The third, also here tonight, with his wife Connie and son, Andrew. My younger brother John Normandin. He was also an incredible wrestler, played on the 1982 undefeated team, the 100th ceremonial outing between Fitchburg and Leominster, and starred as a linebacker for WPI. John's son Andrew, straight A student, has an incredibly bright future in baseball. And this year, for the first time playing football, averaged nearly 130 yards per game for Kearsarge Mount Royal High School in New Hampshire. Congratulations. Love you, John. Also here tonight, my sister and her husband, Tim Ledger. I'm particularly grateful for my sister's support when I needed it most in my life. Thank you. I love you. My nephew, Matt Ledger, who also played for LHS, and his son, Nicholas Francis Ledger, known as NFL. Nick is a straight A student, a dominant center and defensive lineman for Narragansett High School. A sophomore, Nick is 6 feet tall, 265 pounds. Watch him closely. He is already being recruited by prep schools. Our parents, Rose and Franny Normandin, have had an incredible influence in our lives. His high school accomplishments are incredible. He didn't talk about it, his sports accomplishments, nor his service to our country. We are humbled by his accomplishments. Mom and Dad never faltered to support us, encourage us, and drive us to make the most of ourselves. I'm eternally grateful for their sacrifices they made for the betterment of our family. We are incredibly grateful and love them dearly. To my sister-in-law, Kathy Papia, thank you for the friendship. Love you, Kathy. Thank you, Rob Savatelli and his lovely wife, for traveling from New Jersey to celebrate this with me this evening. Thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Savatelli. Much appreciated. The true hero in my life is my beautiful wife, Jody. Jody Papia Normandin. She has supported me through thick and thin, followed me around the country. She keeps me whole, focused, and humble. Jody earned the highest recognition bestowed upon a Make-A-Wish volunteer in 2011, the Tommy Austin Volunteer of the Year Award. But Jody's largest accomplishment was giving birth to our daughter, Jenna Catherine. Her unconditional love and incredible strength held us together during Jenna's sudden illness and passing at age 13. To you, Jenna's mom, you're my rock. I love you. To the team, you are a team. There's no I in team. Play together, live together, and give till it hurts together. It's all we have in life. Make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. That was spectacular. At this time, I understand some parents are waiting for these football players to get outside. So you're dismissed, LHS football team, if you need to get out. Good luck. At this time, I have the pleasure of inducting Dave Palazzi. And it goes back a ways with us. When his dad, who was a dear friend of mine, asked me to coach Pop Warner with him when John Crowley and he were playing together. And I had the pleasure of coaching Dave and watching his athletic acumen at a very young age. This spunky, handsome kid who wouldn't come out of a game. I was in charge of special teams, and I sat him down because on kickoffs he was a torpedo and he was our quarterback. So I told his father and I told him, "You're out," and he never forgave me for it. But he's still in the ranks here. His athletic career is obviously extremely notable. He was a 3-year varsity starter on the football team and was named on the Telegram and Gazette All-Star team his senior year and junior years on the Super team. He completed a record 12 touchdown passes in 1982 during his junior year campaign. Dave was a football team captain during his senior year. He was also a 3-year starter on the basketball and baseball teams, serving as captain on each of those sports during his final high school season. He went on to a highly successful career at University of Massachusetts football team, where he was a 4-year starter. David was the ECAC Rookie of the Year first season, was named to the All-Yankee Conference his senior year for the Minutemen. It didn't end there. At that point, David decided to go play pro football in Italy and went to Padova and played there for, David, 1 year, and then decided to get into the coaching ranks. His career in that area excelled extraordinarily well. There was a time he spent with the Marlborough Shamrocks, which was pretty well known in this area. They had 13 straight Eastern football championships, 7 national championships under his leadership as quarterback. I think we should give him a round of applause for that. That in itself, just absolutely amazing. He was then recruited and spent some time at Millbury High School, turned that program around, started coaching in Leominster, had immediate success with 2 Super Bowl wins right out of the gate. We know the story since then. We hope he sticks around for a long time. He's been elevated and promoted to athletic director, so I understand his coaching duties will be modified, at least as head coach some way. I have to tell you that when I was talking with Mark about this Hall of Fame in general, it was his father who was the impetus for me to get this thing started. I had long heard of stories of Togo Palazzi and Dick Robichaud were my first two legends that I remember as a kid growing up. And when I was old enough to understand just how good they were, these are the kind of guys that I had in mind that we needed to start recognizing. And from that point on, Mark and I put our heads together, and this thing has evolved for our 9th year. It's like putting on a wedding every year, frankly, but we're still going to keep on doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring up at this time to have a few words with us is head coach Dave Palazzi.
You're a pro. You're a pro, man.
Thank you very much. As I told Coach Dubzinski, I'll try to keep this brief, or we'll be going in this thing posthumously, so I'll try to speed it up a little bit. Anyway, I'd like to personally thank Mark and Gil for just a magnificent job with creating this whole Hall of Fame, putting it on a level above and beyond any other Hall of Fame. I mean, it just, you know, I talk to my players all the time how proud they should be to be a part of this huge tradition of Leominster football, and this event tonight just goes to show how much it really means. The only way you can do something like this is if you're passionate about it, and I think everybody in this room is so passionate about football and what we do here at Leominster. I'd also like to congratulate all the inductees, including the team that's going in, the 88 team. What a fantastic thing for Leominster football. That team will go on forever and ever. I'd also like to thank my family, my dad, God rest his soul, my mom, my grandparents, my two sisters who are here tonight, Lynn and Amy, my brother Tom, my sister Lynn, probably the best athlete in the family. That goes unnoticed, but she's here. My father-in-law, Dick and Lois, thank you so much for your beautiful daughter, my wife, Sherry. God rest her soul to be involved and have me involved in football and everything I do. And the mother of my two beautiful daughters, Meadow and Liliana. So thank them. There's just so many people to thank. I could go on forever. I really, you know, what you see before you is pretty much a number of people in this room. You've created what I've become. I can tell stories. Coach Donatelli with his arm around me when I was 10. Coach Marchand, who coached me when I was a freshman. Mr. Ciccolini when I was in 7th grade. My parents were divorced. There was a hard time. Just going above and beyond to take his interest in me and move me along in the right direction. Mr. Healy, Coach Dubzinski hired me my first job at Leominster, and just a number of things they've done. And Mr. Case over here, the Robichaud family. I mean, it's really, all of you have instilled in me what I've become. All the lessons that you've learned throughout your life and able to pass that on to me, and has allowed me to really give back to the community through the football team and other sports, and now as the athletic director. And, you know, I really want to thank all of you going into the Hall of Fame. You know, people ask me, what does it feel like? I'm very, very honored. It brings me back to all the people that have helped me in my life. I mean, that's the only way I can really explain it. And I think that's what life's all about, just trying to create things in people where they gain the ability to make people better. When you meet someone, to make them better than they were when they leave. I mean, that's really the lesson that I have been taught through my life. Mr. Savatelli, true story about Mr. Savatelli, I gotta cut this. When I was in 2nd grade, our teacher was pregnant, and she left. She left us some fish. And I was in 2nd grade, and we went out to recess. This is how times have changed. We went out to recess, and we came back, and this kid had put Comet Cleanser in our fish tank, and the fish would belly up. So like any 2nd grade, I was pretty upset about that, and we got in a little disagreement and a little tussle, fisticuffs, and we end up in the office. And Mr. Salvatelli asked us what had happened. This was Fallbrook, probably 1971. And he said, what happened? I said, I was crying. He put Comet Cleanser in the fish tank and they died. And he beat me up and he yelled at the other kid. He said, you're going home. I'm calling your father right now. Now get back in my office. You go back to class. And he sent me back to class, shook my hand, said, good job. True story. But anyway, in thanking everybody, again, I mean, if you really want to know what I'm all about and where I've come from, I actually have, believe it or not, staple. I didn't even know they had copy machines in 1977 when I was 11. So the team that Gilly was referencing, that team, Mike Valera, my good friend, his wife Cheryl, godparents to my children, was on that team. But my dad was the coach, and this is written in cursive, by the way, from 1977. So I'm just gonna, this is the last thing I'm gonna read. I'll read to you what I read as an 11-year-old kid playing football, and realize the time it was. See if I can see here. It says, the purpose of practice is to win football games, period. Football is a team game. We play this game to win. Don't waste time complaining. Excuses don't change a thing. It is easy to quit. It takes a man to finish what he started. Performance is what counts. Potential is great if it is used. The team that wins is the team that makes the fewest mistakes. We assume you love football. Our job is to help you develop as a team and as an individual. You must be prepared to make sacrifices. This is underlined. Games are won on the practice field more than the day of the game. If you have a complaint, tell your coach or captain, the next sentence is underlined, not your buddy or parents. Hustle all the time. Report all injuries to coach or trainer immediately. It isn't important where they line up, it is where they end up that counts, underlined, on their backs, hopefully. Take pride in yourself, make it contagious, and spread it within the team. If you give 150% all the time, you'll not be selling yourself short. You'll not be selling yourself short. Next line is underlined. Think about what has just been said, okay? Winning isn't everything, but it sure beats whatever come before it. Last line. Apply all these rules every day of your life, and you'll be successful in anything you do. Coach Ron Palazzi. I was 11 years old. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is going to be a one-time event, I think, for us here, where a father and two sons are all inducted into the Football Hall of Fame as players. It started with his father, Dick Robichaud, who, is, as I said earlier, was one of the guys that gave me this premise of starting a Football Hall of Fame. And I ran into Dick one day in a CVS, and I said, Dick, we're going to put you in the Hall of Fame. I think it's noteworthy. I didn't, you know, it wasn't me. It was the guys that were blocking in front of me. I scored, yeah, I did a lot of good things, but it was giving credit to everybody else other than his own athletic ability. So how'd you do in your senior year, which was, you know, concerning everybody? I had a pretty good game. That's all he said. So Mark and I looked it up, and he was wrong. He had a really great game. The newspaper said he scored 4 touchdowns. He kicked off, he punted, and to him it was a pretty good game. That humbleness carried into his sons. Both Keith is going to be inducted this evening. Daryl has already been inducted, and I'm going to call Daryl up now to induct his brother. Come on up. Congratulations.
Doing a good job. There is just enough light up here. Even better. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Gil and Mark for this unique opportunity to introduce my brother for induction. It truly is a special honor. Legendary Dallas Cowboys coach Tom Landry, who was also a favorite of my Grandma Polly, once remarked that leadership is a matter of having people look at you and gain confidence, seeing how you react. If you're in control, they are in control. This is an apt description of our next inductee, my brother, Keith Robichaud. Keith was a member of the varsity football team from 1979 to 1981. He was a tight end as a sophomore, moved into the line for his junior year, where he played offensive right tackle and was also a defensive lineman. Due to a shoulder injury during his senior year, he was relegated to playing only on the offensive side of the ball for the remainder of that season. Additionally, just like my dad, he was the team's primary kicker during both his junior and senior years. Keith was his team's offensive lineman most valuable player for his senior year, a member of the 1981 Central Mass All-Conference football team, and was a captain, along with John Crowley, of the 1981 Super Bowl champion Blue Devils, who defeated Hudson at Holy Cross's Fitton Field. Additionally, he was a decorated wrestler while at Leominster High School, having won the 1981 Division I North Sectional Wrestling Tournament. Quite impressive. And I was usually the one that, when he came home and had learned a new move, I was the one that he tried it out on. Figure 4 leg lock, if that seems to remember, I remember that. Upon graduation from Leominster High School, Keith went on to have a distinguished collegiate football career at Springfield College, where he was a 3-year starter at right guard and was a captain his senior year. In his nomination letter, teammate Doug McIntosh remarked that Keith was, and I quote, the most dedicated football player he had ever met, which included all of Doug's college football teammates, and that he was always the first in the weight room and the last one to leave. Good preparation is a hallmark of any successful athlete. Strength and speed are necessary on the football field to be successful. In the basement of our home, Keith, my dad, and a few of his teammates had constructed a gym in which to work out year-round. This gym would have made MacGyver proud, as it was mainly homemade. The equipment in the basement was not purchased from any store. No, not in the Robichaud family. It was built by hand, bolted together by my brother and others to provide a place for the team, for him and the team to train. I'm pretty confident that not many of today's athletes do curls on a preacher's bench made of leftover 2x4s from one of their dad's construction jobs, but he did. For aficionados of bad 80s movies, if you remember Rocky IV, when he goes to Russia, when Rocky Balboa goes to Russia to train for his fight against Ivan Drago, Ivan's got all the high-tech equipment. Rocky Balboa's out there, climbing mountains and things like that. It was very low-tech in the Robichaud basement, but it got him to where he needed to be. His commitment had a profound impact on me, and I am certain that his work ethic was not lost on his teammates. Growing up on Bowen Place near downtown Leominster, my brother had marked off 10-yard increments on the road outside the house using spray paint. I don't think it rose to the level of vandalism, but I always remember there were little T's, 10-yard increments. Our house sits on a slight incline, just enough to make you know that it's there. So when you're running it, you get a little bit more of a workout. On most nights during the summer, you could have found him doing wind sprints in the dark. He would do cycles of 10-yard sprints, 20-yard sprints, until he built up to 40-yard sprints. Keith is 7 years older than I am, but sometimes I would go out on the street with him and run those sprints. He would often give me a 10-yard head start, and he would still catch me by the time we got to the 40-yard line. But you were 16, 17, I was about 10 or so. The work that he put in on his speed and quickness were instrumental in two of the defining plays of his high school career. The first was in a game against Wachusett when he was on the defensive side of the ball. He and Jim Westfall shot the center gap, met the running back in the backfield. The ball popped into the air, into Keith's hands. He proceeded to, dare I say, gallop 95 yards for a touchdown, with Jim Westfall throwing blocks behind him. For good measure, he then kicked the extra point. It's amazing in my mind to think that an interior defensive lineman would have both the speed and stamina to outrun the other team over that distance. The second play that I remember distinctly, as I was a water boy on the sidelines at the time, was in the 1981 Super Bowl on a sweep to the left. Pitch goes to the left, my brother pulls, linebackers are engaged at the point of attack, clears the second level, takes on the safety, and then ran stride for stride with Scott Chester, one of the fastest backs I've seen personally. It's evident that the time spent pounding the pavement on Bowen Place certainly paid off in those two instances. In gathering my thoughts for this evening's event, it occurred to me that due to our age difference, Keith and I have never had the opportunity to wear a uniform together, nor to go up against each other in the trenches. With him having been primarily an offensive lineman and me being a defensive lineman, I bet it would have made for a nice battle in the trenches. However, I'm sure that we would both have conflicting opinions as to who would have won those battles. In closing, I would like to leave you with two quotes from Vince Lombardi, head coach of the Green Bay Packers during their heyday of the 1960s. The first quote is, "The quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence," next page, "regardless of their chosen field of endeavor." The success that Keith, myself, and my sister Tammy have enjoyed, not only in all of our respective athletic endeavors, but also in our adult lives, would not have been possible without the love, support, and guidance of our parents, Dick and Judy Robichaud, to whom we are forever indebted. Thank you. Finally, the second and final quote from Coach Lombardi is as follows. "The price of success is hard work, dedication to the job at hand, and the determination that whether we win or lose, we have applied the best of ourselves to the task at hand." Keith conducted himself in a manner that I am sure Coach Lombardi would have appreciated, and he would have loved to have him on his teams. At this time, it is my great honor and privilege to present to you for induction into the Leominster High School Hall of Fame, my brother, Keith Robichaud.
No, well, thank you. Thank you. First off, I'd like to acknowledge the Leominster High School Hall of Fame Selection Committee, as well as Gil and Mark, for their leadership of this event, along with my fellow inductees of the Hall of Fame class for this year. I'd also like to recognize my friends, teammates, and coaches that have supported me throughout my Leominster High School, as well as Springfield College football career. But more specifically, the late Coach Bolio, Coach Vayette, and Coach Dubzinski. As you're hearing, I'm following in a long list of Hall of Fame recipients. within both my extended family and my immediate family. My uncle Roger Robichaud and Ralph Case have received this Hall of Fame honor. Also with my sister Tammy being the first to be inducted into a Hall of Fame as the head athletic trainer of the state champion Durfee High School baseball team. Oh, I didn't win either. And as you saw, while my little younger brother, Daryl, has previously been recognized for his individual football accomplishments, including today's induction as a member of the 1988 Leominster High School football team, which beat Brockton. A football accomplishment that I and my teammates strived for, but came up short, as well as many of you in this room. My father, Dick Robichaud, has been enshrined individually in the Football Hall of Fame, and he is also part of the Leominster Athletic Hall of Fame as a four-sport athlete, as well as a member of the 1957 basketball team, the only undefeated basketball team in Leominster's history. Throughout my athletic career, my father always instilled in me to be in the best shape that I could be in. This was to avoid injuries and to allow me to focus on being the best at my position. And through all of those years, it was my mother who supported all of us during our respective athletic endeavors. I am humbled to be introduced individually in this Hall of Fame today with three wins over Fitchburg, while previous being inducted as a member of the 1981 Super Bowl championship team. Let me take a brief moment to tell you about a key offensive play from the game. And this will be the third time you guys have heard this. So as we were talking about, the sweep left was called in the huddle by the late Dave Pavlaitis versus Hudson at Holy Cross. Dave Del Giudice and I pulled to escort the sweep, and the work of our left side linemen, center Doug McIntosh, left guard E.J. Tossi, and left tackle Dave Gabrielli, picked up every Hudson player at the point of attack. Reaching the corner and turning upfield, Dave engaged the cornerback, and I positioned myself between the oncoming safety and Scott Chester as we moved up the field. I blocked the safety without leaving my feet, and then we were off to the races for a total of 75 long yards to the end zone. And yes, Dad, you were right. Conditioning pays in the long run. I tell you that story and mention all of these people because I firmly believe that in football and in life, it takes a team. And it was the team of the players on and off the field that supported me, challenged me, and picked me up when I was down that contributed to me being here today. Furthermore, it was the same group that instilled in me a sense of responsibility to give back to the sports that had given me so much by becoming a coach myself. When my son Josh, who just yesterday found out he has passed the bar exam, and my daughter Kelly were old enough and wanted to play sports. Next page. I was fortunate to be able to coach them and instill in them the values that my coaches, and most importantly my father, had instilled in me. This led me to coach a wide range of sports, from baseball to soccer, lacrosse, and softball. We had highs and lows, from tough seasons below 500 to winning a pony softball championship with Kelly. I retired from coaching to traveling around the East Coast with my wife Jean and see Kelly behind the plate as a 4-year starter at Ithaca College. Through all of it, good and bad, Jean and I sought to instill the same sense of sportsmanship and loyalty on and off the field in those that I coached, in the hopes that someday they too would pass it along. Kelly at this time is an assistant softball coach at Emmanuel College. That is why I ask you, the 2018 Leominster High School football team, to enjoy your individual, well-deserved accomplishments on and off the field, remembering the family, coaches, and supporters that got you here, and when you have the opportunity to give back to the sport that gave you so much. And most importantly, beat Fitchburg. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to induct Dave Malatis. And that's going to be done by Pat LaPointe. Take your time.
Which one's working? Both?
No, the other one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? It's truly an honor to be part of this wonderful group, especially tonight where I personally know most of the inductees, and I'd like to congratulate all of them. Certainly Mr. Marchand over there with that wonderful award, and Mr. Lassen, if he's still here. There you are. Congratulations. You know, I was supposed to introduce Keith Robichaud. Over the last couple of years, I've become good friends with Judy and Roby. We're all Eagles members, and we have a lot of fun down here. But after listening to Darryl tonight, I'm not disappointed at all. He did a great job. Before I start, I just want to recognize somebody in the audience. When they played the audio on the Brockton game, there's a familiar voice during the game. And I don't know if anybody realizes, and if you don't, you should, and you will now. Hall of Fame member Dick Tucker is celebrating his 40th year as the voice of Leominster football. Dick Tucker. He's actually now the voice of Leominster sports. Again, pleasure to be here. Dave Malatis was a 1975 graduate of Leominster High School, where he played varsity football, baseball, and hockey. During his senior year, he captained all three teams. His contributions on the baseball diamond earned him a college scholarship in that sport. As a junior, he made a critical interception that led to a touchdown, sealing the win in the waning moments of Leominster's first Super Bowl contest. However, the next year he topped this in his senior year with one of the most dramatic moments in Leominster High School football history. September 7th, 1974, Springfield College. Leominster was returning as defending Super Bowl champs, and they faced another tough Chicopee team, who they beat the year before 13-0. They battled to a 0-0 tie until late in the game. Chicopee scored with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. Huck Hannigan, God bless him, in his office had a sign that read, "Winners never quit, and quitters never win." Then it happened. Paul Robichaud, the quarterback, with Sandro Vittorioso and Paul McCumber, led a furious comeback in those last 2:40. And Steve Ringer, the Hall of Famer, scored with 4 seconds left, a short touchdown run, calmly kicked the point after. Sudden death overtime. Both teams had a chance to win. Both teams missed field goals in the first overtime period. In the second overtime period, Chicopee had the ball first and marched down to set up for a relatively short field goal try that was going to win the game. Then it happened. Johnny Angelini broke through the line, blocked the kick, and Dave Mulatto's right behind him, picked up the leather, as the paper then said, and took off for an 86-yard touchdown. The paper said that he looked back, seemed to look back a couple times, wondering whether the touchdown was going to count. Unbelievably, the officials in the press box started clearing the field, saying the game was not over as the touchdown did not count. Fortunately, referee Bill Loftus ran up to the press box with his rulebook in hand and showed the officials in the box that, indeed, the tiebreaker rule says the touchdown was good. Leominster defended its Division I championship. They went undefeated. Later that day, Natick knocked off undefeated Reading High School, and Leominster was named #1 team in the state. I would like to invite one of our most clutch players up here to be rightfully inducted in the Leominster High School Football Hall of Fame, where he belongs, David Mulatto.
Hang on to it. See which ones. Go ahead and see.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank Gilly Donatelli and Mark Bonanza for all the work they do towards this occasion, and I'd like to thank Pat LaPointe for introducing me. I would like to first thank the Hall of Fame Committee for electing me to this position. Being part of LHS Sports is a time-based tradition. For 4 years, I had the privilege of being part of the teams coached by Coach Hannigan, Bolio, Horrigan, Viette, Mercier, Dubzinski, and Lanciani. We had exciting Thanksgiving games and awesome Super Bowl games. The highlights of the games will always be with me, as well as the long-term memories and friendships that were made throughout this time. I really appreciate my family and friends for being here tonight. It means the world to me. Thank you once again for honoring me by inducting me into the Hall of Fame, and I appreciate it very much.
The fifth individual inductee this evening is David Dinsmore, who played football for Leominster High in 69, 70, and 71. I had the pleasure of playing with David during my sophomore year in high school. If you knew Dave Dinsmore, you knew he was the real deal. An absolute tough football player. In fact, I have this indelible memory of David being on the kickoff team during his senior season, and he could get down the field pretty quick, and he'd literally run into the wedge standing straight up, and plays, it looked like a pinball. Plays would go off in different directions, but he wouldn't go anywhere but straight ahead. David started his junior season and his senior season. During his sophomore season, he played special teams, and he did have rotational duty. But he made the North Worcester County All-Star team his junior and senior seasons. He made the Telegram and Gazette Worcester County All-Star team and was a co-captain his senior season. He was also a great wrestler and had the record in Massachusetts for a period of time, pitting his opponent in 8 seconds, which is also the second quickest pin in the country at the time. It's a funny thing, life, and you know, as a young sophomore, watching David play his senior season, I admired him, and I had to go on the board drill with him several times, and I knew what kind of a player he was, so I can attest firsthand how tough of a guy he was. I haven't seen him since high school, and one of the duties we do in connection with this is we have to track people down, and sometimes it's a bit of detective work to do it. Thank God for social media. Seems to make the job a little easier these days. So I was able to track David down, and a lot of times when we call somebody, it takes them, it's right out of the blue. They have no idea that this is coming. And he was just so surprised and absolutely overjoyed that he was remembered, or his high school football days were remembered. He's quite a wonderful person. Unfortunately, he had a trip that conflicted with this, and I asked him, I said, we can put it over to next year, and you can come next year. And he wanted to be in. He wanted to be in as soon as possible. So we've inducted him this year. Unfortunately, as I said, he can't make it, but kindled a friendship with him the last couple of weeks. He'll be up here at some point. I told him next year if you come as an alumni of the Hall of Fame, we'll certainly let you speak. But an all-around wonderful individual and human being, and a great football player. If you ever look at some of those old films and watch him play, he was an amazing guy. So it gives me great honor and pride to induct David Dinsmore to our Football Hall of Fame. I guess next what we're going to do is induct the 1988 football team. Gil.
Their names must be in
I got it. All right, so a lot of us in this room probably remember where we were in October of 1988 when the vaunted Brockton Boxers came to town to play our Blue Devils. And thank you. I'll never see this without these. And every other football team that we inducted to this Hall of Fame thus far has been a Super Bowl winner, which unfortunately is not the case with the 1988 team. But when we met as a board, we decided that their performance in that game against Brockton could not go unnoticed. The 1988 team was an amazing team. Their record was 10-1. They lost by a single point in the Super Bowl to St. John's. But they won all of their other games before the Super Bowl. They amassed a total of 276 points scored against their opponents' 81 points. Absolutely dominating season. If you were there for that Brockton game in October of 1988, you'll know that there wasn't too much empty space at Doyle Field. Probably one of the largest crowds I've ever seen at Doyle Field. And the place was absolutely electric. As the story goes, as many of you know, Brockton was ranked #1 in the country, and actually, if you talk to the experts, Leominster High School had no business being on the field with them. Well, that's not what happened that special October night. Not only did Leominster prevail, but they really took it to Brockton and won the game handily, 27-12, which is one of the greatest pieces of Leominster High School lore. I know I was standing on the Morton Street banking with a bunch of my friends, and we were cheering as loud and hard as we could. And I have to say, it was one of the greatest experiences in terms of watching Leominster High School football that I have ever had. and this team is absolutely deserving of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So as a board, we voted to do that, and here we are tonight. So we're going to call up members of the team from the roster. And first we have Rusty Frederick.
Yeah, they're underneath the table.
A book and a plaque. Not all of these players will be here, but we'll call them all. Dave Proetti, send them this way. Send this way. Send them this way. Mark Matthews. Chris Walsh. Norm Doiron. Jim Katanis. Keith Collette. They're the wrong boxes. Mark Wernan. Peter Tata. Don Shaban. Doug Derry. Rich Krupa. I don't know what they want. There's 3 boxes of them.
Awesome.
Angela Wallace accepting for her son, Michael Wallace. Kevin Kelly. Jay Valera. Jason Tata's award being accepted by his wife, I believe. Chris Gullickson.
Just check under the table one more time. There you go. Congratulations.
Joel Favreau. Steve Quinn. Jason Coette. Jim Cristoforo. Brian Bond. Eric Herndon. Mark Dion. Sean Anderson. Tim Tata's wife, I believe, accepting his award. Chris Barrows. Jason Carr. The hotel must have them. Check on the whole.
Check every slot.
Scott Salvi. Rick Capone. Rich Sargent. You want to take over? You want to take over? I'll look for him. Grant Thomas. Right here. Can you read that?
Yep. Is Grant Thomas here next? No? Andy Kelly. Gary Fitzgerald.
Barry Senecal. Rick Loisel. Craig Martino. Craig Martin, excuse me. Craig Martin? No. John Carr. Ron Mazzaferro? No. Jim Gingras? Chris Vizina? Chris Candiello? Darryl Robichaud? Steve Lanza? Andy Johns? Steve LeBlanc? Brian Gannon? Check on the side of the stage. Scott Philbin? Steve Santucci? Frank Eccaboni? Congratulations. Frank Eccaboni, is he still here? Dave Gendron.
Dave Gendron! Who is that guy from Salisbury? Who is that guy?
Chris Cutter. Stevie. Tom Loisel. Jorge Colon.
There he is, Mr. Gendron.
Okay, we're on head coaches now. Head coach, John Dubzinski. Assistant coach, Roger Mercier. Assistant coach, Bob Healy. Assistant coach, Chris Young. Assistant coach, Jeff Wernan. Assistant coach, Mark Krasansky. Assistant coach, Ron Mazzaferro. And lastly, assistant coach, Mark Rosowski. I'm pissed about these books. I don't know what's going on. Let me get Moxie's on. Thank you, everybody.
Billy, come down here!
If you guys want to line up for a team picture, let's get it organized and get it done. Vinny, you gonna do that now? Hey. Little too much beer. Hey team, why don't you come and lay up in front of the stage, we'll get a group photo, come on.
Any tall ones? Tall ones. Get back. Get back. Get back, brother. Sign on. Those little kids that are the team now,
side.
I remember being attacked.
All right, thank you guys. Clear out and we'll get on with the show. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't get a book.
No.
I wouldn't mind if I could get one.
Do you live around here?
I live on Connor's Way.
And then give him yours if he's traveling. So come down and get another one.
Hey, you'll get me a book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this, why don't you tell them to go up and get them from here? Your certificates after we're done. All right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get Coach Mark Krasinski's plaque and sign it.
Mark Krasinski's plaque. Mark Krasinski gets a plaque. It's his son. How's he doing?
He's doing
You
good.
look a lot like him.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go. If you guys can take a seat, we'll get on with the contributors. That team that just came up, listen up. Before you leave, there are certificates up here with your names on them. We didn't give them out. So when the program's over, come up and grab your certificate. Everybody get that? Okay, can we have it quiet, please? We're going to begin the last part of the show here. Can you quiet those? Can you get those guys to be quiet? Okay, let's get on with this, folks. We've got 3 more awards to give out. Induction into the Hall of Fame. These are for contributors. Can I have your attention, please? Can you please quiet down so we can continue the presentation? Thank you. All right, thanks. At this time, the first contributor to be inducted this evening will be Diane Flanagan, being inducted by Jen Flanagan. Former Senator Jen Flanagan will come up to present her mother.
If there's one thing I've learned in my political career, is brevity is best. So don't worry. Tonight's been a wonderful night, watching everyone come together to celebrate the rich history and legacy of the Leominster Blue Devils. It's also an exciting time of year, getting ready for the Thanksgiving Day game, reminiscing about the details of the games that we had as seniors, and more importantly, coming together as a community to support our school, our players, and our families. This evening, I have been given the distinct honor of introducing one important person whose contributions to the Leominster Blue Devils extends far beyond the sidelines. My mom, Diane Flanagan, has been a member of the youth football for over 4 decades, ranging from Pop Warner to Leominster High. After graduating from Leominster High School, my mom became involved in the original civil defense and began covering games as an EMT, taking that old school ambulance from the building on Lancaster Street to the field every week. Once my sister and I were old enough to hang out with friends at the game, she always would tell us, make sure you have a ride home if I have to leave with a player. Personally, I think that was her way of trying to get us to pay attention to the game and not hang out behind the bleachers or up on the hill. Since that time, my mom has earned her RN, raised the family, and became a grandmother. However, one thing remained constant: her love of sports, football and baseball, and her dedication to the Leominster Blue Devils. If there's one thing that my family knows, it's that from September until Thanksgiving Day, my mom will be on the sidelines at every football game on Friday nights or the rare Saturday afternoons to assist when needed. You often see her running towards a player when they're down and the clock stops. You may see her assessing the injury on the field or walking the boys off the field, although I do have to admit these boys have gotten bigger and I think she's gotten a little shorter. But what you don't see is the care she takes to ensure that her players receive the medical attention that they need after the play, or the compassion that she shows the family once the player is stabilized. Watching from the stands, it's evident how much she cares for these players, and in turn, they treat her like an important part of their team. She spends the season helping whenever needed, laughing when jokes are made, or maybe even helping a spectator or two. But no matter what, you know that when she's there, you're in good hands. My mom is a diehard Red Sox fan, and for those of you that may follow her on social media, know that she attends the fantasy camp that they have at Fort Myers, Florida every year. Well, when the Red Sox made the playoffs this year and we got her tickets to go, her first words to me were, "But the boys have a game." Coach Palazzi, I told her to go to the Red Sox. She is so dedicated to the boys of the Leominster football team that she was contemplating not going to the playoff game to be there for the kids on the field. So it's with this distinct honor and pleasure that I introduce to you as an inductee to the 2018 Hall of Fame, my mom, Diane Flanagan.
Okay, because this has been such a long night, I promise to make this very short. First of all, I want to thank my daughter Jen for the kind words. Also, I want to thank the members of the committee for the Hall of Fame. I am proud, humbled, and honored to be nominated and being inducted actually tonight. There are so many people to thank for the years that I've put on the sideline. From all of the past athletic directors going back as far as Ted Damko, Pauline Ciccone, where do we go from there? Frank Stefanides, Chris Young, Dave Palazzi. But most of all, I want to thank the parents and the players for giving me the honor to be on that sideline, to be there, to be available to help your children, to help you. I don't know where else I'd want to be. I have to thank my scheduler at work. For those of you that don't know, I work in the emergency room at Leominster as a nurse. She has worked with me to get every Friday night off and my eventual Saturdays so that I can be there for your team, for my team. I call them my players wherever I go, and I'm proud to be there with them. So with all of that, I want to thank everyone again, and Thanksgiving's right around the corner. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice going, Jen. Nice going, Diane. Next up is our esteemed head coach, former head coach John Dubzinski, will be inducted by his nephew, Steve Dubzinski.
Two things before we get going. John Dobzinski should have been inducted a long time ago if he beat Brockton with that group right over there, okay? Oh my God. That's A. B. Diane Flanagan, you are also needed with that group right over there. I want to congratulate all the inductees tonight and all the alums that are here. It is truly a remarkable feat to pull this off. So for Mark Bonanza and Gilly Donatelli, I really just want to say thank you for doing this every year. There's also a group of people that we've forgotten to thank tonight, to be honest with you. My dad has always said it's the only sport girls don't play. But I have to tell you, he wasn't very politically correct. But the secret behind every male boy football player is a strong mom and a tough mom and a great family support. So to the mothers out there, thank you. I also was not supposed to be presenting tonight. My cousin John was going to be the presenter. Unfortunately, he's been preparing his North Andover Scarlet Knight football team to a 10-0 record and heading to Gillette on the 1st of December in the Super Bowl for Eastern Mass. So congratulations. He's the smart one of the family. When I was appointed principal at Leominster High School in June, I received a card in the mail from my Aunt Donna and my Uncle John. And it said, congratulations, and as God is my witness, I still have it. All it said was, beat Fitchburg. That's what he said. And he just said to me tonight, anytime the thing gets off the rails and it starts to unwind and it starts to lull, just say something about beating Fitchburg and the place goes bananas, so you're all set. Ironically, today, in the Gardner News, I just left my parents' house earlier tonight, this is truth. It was a flashback to the Gardner-Leominster football series over the years. And on November 6th, 1965, Gardner beat Leominster 20-6. It was my grandfather's final year, and a defensive lineman by the name of John Dobzinski, I don't know how he did this, but he picked off an interception and returned it for 6. And then, not to be outdone, caught a fumble in midair and rumbled, tumbled, and stumbled for another 6. So he scored 2. But as I said earlier, the secret behind that operation is his wife, Donna. And I want to thank them for being such great family members. I know it's in your book, but I just want to say this. John compiled a football coaching tenure spanning 46 years. You don't see that anymore. All right. Obviously, 24 of those were here at Leominster. He recorded 177 wins, 85 losses, and 2 ties. He had 9 league championships, went to the Super Bowl 8 times, and won 4. At the time of his induction in the Massachusetts High School Football Hall of Fame, of which he's in with his brother and his father, he was one of only 9 active coaches to have 200 victories. He is in the Gardner High School Hall of Fame. He is in the Leominster High School Hall of Fame now. He is in the Massachusetts High School Hall of Fame. And this moment tonight is long overdue. However, beyond all of the football accomplishments, and I'm glad that Lou D'Alessandro mentioned tonight about relationships, because he and I are pretty different, okay? He's quiet, he keeps to himself. It's not about the fanfare. It was never about him. He is fiery out there. But one story that has stayed with me for a very long time is that the Wallace family comes every year to Leominster, every couple years, every year, to speak about mental health and mental illness. And Mrs. Wallace has said to me that at Michael's difficult time, Michael, for those of you who don't know, went to Leominster, was as good a student athlete as ever come through the doors, went on to Harvard to play, and was suffering through some mental illness at the time. At the time, she only allowed certain people into the hospital to meet with Michael, and Coach Dobzinski was one of them. Quietly, after practice, after school, at night, get in his car, and just drive up to New Hampshire to meet with him. There's probably thousands of those stories that go through for John Dobzinski. Beyond that game, with that group, were the relationships that he formed as a teacher, and as a coach at Leominster High School. And this city is a better place because of John Dubzinski, and this night is long overdue. Ladies and gentlemen, John Dubzinski.
I just want to say one thing. If you think that team that came up here before seemed to be Brockton was wild now, you should have seen them when they were 15, 16. Thank you very much. I want to thank Stephen for those kind words. I'd also like to congratulate all the Hall of Fame inductees. They all made a positive impact on Leominster High School and the Leominster High football program. I really want to thank the person who flipped on the lights today, because other than that, I had no shot here. No shot. I know it's been a long night. I'm going to be very, very brief. My experience at Leominster High School was a great experience. I spent a lot of time. I was 45 years coaching high school football at 4 different schools. 35 of those were at Leominster High School. I enjoyed every moment of it. It was a great, great run that we had. And when we beat Brockton High School, that was just the greatest victory for our Leominster High team. It was unbelievable what they did. I saw Ricky Krupa tonight, and when he was in high school, he weighed about 120 pounds, and we were playing Brockton High, who had like the biggest kids in the world. And here's Ricky Krupa trying to block like a guy who's playing at Miami the next year. And I said to myself, I'm going to be like arrested for child endangerment or something. I mean, this is not good. But it was unbelievable. Just to see the guys now, nice job. I hope you're not coming up here. Get up here. Before this gets really crazy, there's one person I want to introduce and thank very much. All my ADs, all the coaches I worked with, they were all great. But there was one guy who was with me through every game that I coached as a high school football coach. It's Roger Mercer. I'd like to have Roger Mercer stand up. Roger. Nobody loves Leominster High School more than Roger Mercer. As far as I was concerned, we were like co-coaches. He handled the offense, I handled the defense, and I'll tell you, I never disagreed with one call that he made. Never. We were like two people. All we did was fight all the time. He'd yell at me because the defense was giving up too many points. I'd yell at him because we weren't scoring enough points. We'd go back and forth. The next day it was like nothing happened. You know, so a little secret I was always had the reputation as I didn't want to pass the ball. Didn't want to pass. The quarterbacks hated me. Wide receivers hated me because they weren't getting the ball. And the secret is I never called any of the plays. I wanted to pass the ball, but the offensive coordinator did it. So is up. That's the truth now.
Really setting me up. Huh?
In closing, I just want to thank my family. My daughter Jane, who's a graduate of Leominster High School, 2002, graduate at Fordham University. She can't be with us tonight. She's on a business thing. My son John, who's a graduate in 1998, played for us. He was an all-star guard, defensive tackle. Won his Super Bowl his senior year. Went to Bates College. He's had a great he's a teacher coach at North Andover High School. He's also worked at Everett High under John DiBiaso. He worked at Arlington, and he's having a great year. We've had a great week, and the Dubzinski family has had a great weekend because his team qualified Friday night to go to the first Super Bowl for North Andover. It's been 26 years since North Andover appeared in the Super Bowl, so it's long overdue, and they're really excited about it. Let's see, what else? I'm just going fast here. I have to talk about my daughter-in-law, Allie. She's wonderful. They have two beautiful kids. James Walter Dubzinski, 5, and Anna Dubzinski, who's 16 months. My son finally fired me as a coach, and he hired me as a babysitter. Every Thursday we get up at 5 o'clock and drive to Andover, and it's the best day of my week. And finally, Donna. She did all the heavy lifting. The fall was always busy, but she always made it work. She juggled her teaching job, taking care of the kids. I could never done anything without her helping us out. I'm almost done. Somebody gave her a plaque years and years ago. It said, "We interrupt this marriage for football season." And she used to put it, the first day of practice, she'd put it right on the refrigerator, and it would stay there the whole fall. And when I'd walked in the house after the last game of the year, she'd take it off, and then I'd put it away. And then the next year, we did it again and again. She passed it along to my daughter-in-law, Allie, because of John coaching. Now the same thing's on his countertop, so the tradition continues. I want to thank everybody. It was a great run. Leominster High School is a great school. I wish Coach Palazzi and his team the best of luck. And one thing I know, the turkey always tastes better when you win on Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Nice job. Way to go, Conor. Yes. I know you're going to get that photo with this guy. Nice job. John, you step over here.
Okay, folks, last one up here is a very important individual to this organization. I'm talking about my dear friend, Mark Bedanza. And when this thing began of football for Mark and I, it started with the reenactment of the 1894 game that Mark wanted to play. Full equipment, which was no equipment, just uniforms, live tackle, it was in my field. And, you know, if anyone in this room were at that game, you know what I'm talking about. It was Clash of the Titans. And we had a great reenactment game, and that's what sparked my interest to ask Mark, let's do this Hall of Fame thing. And he immediately jumped in, and, you know, like any successful businessman will tell you, if you want to be successful, surround yourself with talented people. I mean, the best and brightest you can find. And you get a better shot at it. And this fits Mark's DNA. Let me give you a little rundown on him. His education started and ended in 1974 at Leominster High School. He went on for a Bachelor of Arts degree at Fitchburg State College, and then on to a law degree in 1981 at Albany Law. His government participation is legendary. City Solicitor, 1990 to 1994. City Councilor, 2014 to present. Finance Chairman for the City Council, 2016 to present. Current Chairman of the Leominster Public Library Board of Trustees. Current member of the Doyle Field Commission. Former Chairman of the Leominster Library Building Committee. Former member of the Leominster High School Building Committee for renovations. That's government. Now civic. Current trustee of the Leominster Historical Society. Current member of the Board of Directors of the Doyle Field Foundation. Former member of the St. Anne's School. His football participation. Member of the Leominster High School football teams 1971 and 1973. Leominster Pop Warner League representative and coach, 2000 to 2005. Twin City Raiders semi-pro football team, founder and coach, 2011 to 2014. Principal organizer of the reenactment football game, which I just mentioned. Co-founder of Leominster High School Football Hall of Fame. Football historian is understated. I mean, we all know the books he's written depicting Leominster High School football with Fitchburg and in general. Next category, author. He has written 3 plays on local history. One, An Evening at Kendall Tavern in 2003. The second one was The Coming Crucible in 2005. The third play was Our Flag Was Still There in 2007. Oh, in his spare time he wrote some books. First, A Game That Forged Rivals. We gave it out to most of the players tonight. They're missing. We'll get them to you. That was in 2009. 1933 Football at Depth of the Great Depression, a book he wrote in 2010, which was read and recognized by head coach Bill Belichick. He's actually got photos with them discussing it down at Foxborough. Next, Make It Count, a book he wrote, The Life and Times of basketball great JoJo White, credited with helping induct JoJo White into the Hall of Fame. He incited that to happen. He's understating it. Another book, Resolve and Rescue, the true story of Francis Drake and the anti-slave movement, 2014. For those who don't know, she was a Leominster resident. And then the next one he wrote was 10 Times a Champion, a story of basketball legend Sam Jones, 2015. Currently just finished the book and is doing book signings with Lou D'Alessandro, The Lion of the New Hampshire Senate and Thoughts for Presidential Hopefuls, in 2018. Family and career. Mark has a private practice since 1982 and in a partnership with his brother David since 1989. Married to the former Adele Seamard. With 3 children, Melissa, Kara, and Nicholas. Mark also is starting a paper route for the Boston Globe in his spare time and gonna do some plowing for the DPW this winter. I'm kidding, but he'd fit it in if he needed to. This is an individual that I'm telling you is one of the most enriching experiences in my life as an adult. I've been able to count on him for advice, for inspiration. If you think you got a tough problem, he can very quickly and succinctly dissect it for you and classify it. I've had some very moving moments in my life after listening to Mark and being involved in him with this Hall of Fame would be a fraction of what it is. It is absolutely something that he has had more than a large part in, and I'm glad to be drafting behind him. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and my privilege to introduce you to Bonanza. Standing ovations expected.
Thank you for those kind words, Gilly. Before I start, I'm slightly embarrassed because we're a little befuddled up here looking for books that we were supposed to have. My office is literally 5 minutes down the street, so when we conclude, I'm going there to get those books. So if you want to have a drink, some of those 88 team members might still be around, I'm thinking. You can, if you're an inductee, we're supposed to get a book. We'll have enough before we break up this tonight. Again, Gil, thank you for those kind words. First and foremost, thank you to my wife for supporting all of those efforts over the years and giving me the patience and time to do that. We don't have a sign for the refrigerator yet, but that's not a bad idea. Coach Dubzinski. Thank you to Mikey for the same reason, with my co-founder of the Hall of Fame. My wife is with her friend going back to junior high, Candy Nicholson. And many of you may know that the cup that's exchanged between Leominster High School and Fitchburg High School every year is called the Nicholson Cup. Well, that was donated to this Thanksgiving Day rivalry back in 1926. And it was her grandfather that started it. So round of applause for Haldy Nicholson. And let's get it back this year. Okay, Coach? And thank you also to Senator D'Alessandro and his lovely wife, Pat. They have really become dear friends, and thank you for supporting me and coming here this evening. If I could really pick a spot where my involvement that led to where I'm standing right now started, it was on Thanksgiving Day in 1969. My dad graduated from Fitchburg High School in 1938. He was a great admirer of Coach Clarence Amiot, who was a very successful coach in that era. And he loved the sport, loved following football. And we ended up in the press box that day because my dad's brother's relative worked for Louise Doyle. And she used to get 2 tickets as a tradition to the press box every year on Thanksgiving. And we ended up in those seats. And as a 13-year-old, that was pretty impressive. And if you know anything about that game, Leominster was supposed to get beat pretty badly. Fitchburg was a nationally ranked team. They were undefeated. Leominster was 6-2. Well, the rest of the story is that Leominster took it to Fitchburg and was up 20-0 at the half and coasted easily to a 40-12 win. During that game, I was given a program. And that program celebrated the 75th anniversary of the rivalry. And in the back of that program were a lot of historic photographs of old teams, going back to 1894, 1910, 1917. Also, there was a letter in the front of the book written by John Joyce celebrating that very first 1894 game between Leominster and Fitchburg. I was intrigued as a young boy reading this, and I dog-eared that program. I still have it. And for some reason, back in 2009, I got an idea that stuck in my head that I wanted to reenact the 1894 football game. A lot of people told me I was nuts. We'd get some people killed because they didn't wear equipment back in those days. And then one night I was in a bar having a drink, and I saw Gilly, and I was planning this reenactment game for basically his side yard. I said, I think I better tell him that I'm going to put 1,000 people there some afternoon. And not only did he not object, but he got involved. And we had a great time. And if you were there, to quote Frank Novak, he said it was the best football game he's ever seen in his life. And he's seen a few, having coached in the NFL for 16 years. And it wasn't long after that, Gil asked me to help him launch this Football Hall of Fame. And you know, I think it was our 4th or 5th annual induction. I got to introduce Bob Mativia. And if those of you know Bob Mativia, he played in that 69 game. He averaged 8.6 yards per carry that season. He ran all over Fitchburg that day. one of the most humble people I've ever met in my life. I was thrilled, late into my 50s, to be able to meet him. I was thrilled to introduce him here that night, and he actually handed me the game ball that he won in 1969. Now, when I was 13 years old, there is no chance I would have ever believed that some night I'd be introducing that guy that I was watching run all over Fitchburg to this Hall of Fame, and he'd be handing me the game ball from that game. And we've become friends ever since. It's a strange way that life works. And, you know, I never touched a football during any varsity football game. Never came close to touching a football. In 2010, when I was researching my second book, I found that Leominster and Fitchburg played a game in 1898. And if you follow the series closely, you'll know that every eve of Thanksgiving, there's a series standing that is printed in the newspaper going all the way back to the 1894 game. And all the scores are tallied up, and the wins and losses and ties and the points. And I remember even going back to a youth, I've always looked at that every year and studied it. Well, in 2010, I found out in my research that there was a game played at the forerunner of Crocker Field, the Circle Street grounds, where Fitchburg allegedly won the game 5-0. But when I did my research, I found that they scored that touchdown, 5 points back in those days, in the waning moments of the game on a punt return. The only problem was that the story detailed that the referee blew the whistle and called the play back because the entire Fitchburg cheering section went onto the field and ran with the ball carrier into the end zone. The Leominster team couldn't even find the guy, never mind tackle him. So they tried to restore order. There was no MIAA. There were no real adults involved in this. The referee got frustrated, blew the whistle, ended the game as a 0-0 tie. But anybody who knows anything about the newspaper business, Jimmy Normandin is still here, he'll echo this. It isn't the reporter that writes the headline, it's the editor. So the reporter told it accurately, but the editor put 5-0 Fitchburg win. Well, I went to the editor of the newspaper in 2010 and said, hey, here's your newspaper article. You didn't win the game. You know what he did? He changed it to a 0-0 tie. So 40-something years after I played high school football, I never touched the ball, but I changed the Leominster loss to a tie. Proving, without a doubt, that all things are possible. You know, I've been very blessed, not only with the family support and the support of friends, but to meet some very fine individuals in my writing career that was really launched as a result of that reenactment career. I wrote my first book, A Game That Forged Rivals, as a program to explain to people what they were watching when we did that 1894 reenactment game. Well, there was so much material contained in it, I thought, well, I'll turn it into a book because I want someone to be able to someday go back and look at this history and be able to find it and maybe improve on it. And I figured I'll sell 100 copies to my family and friends, but you know, at least it'll be in the library, it'll be preserved. Well, that book sold over 1,500 copies just in the local Barnes & Noble store, which I'd have never believed. So that launched a second book, 1933, Football at the Depth of the Great Depression, and then I always wanted to write the book about the abolitionist, but Jojo White's story interrupted it, and meeting Jojo White, just a most amazing man. I miss him dearly. Became a friend of him and his family, and he became friends with our family, which led to a book about a 10-time NBA champion, Sam Jones. He's one of the finest people I've ever met, which led to a book about Senator D'Alessandro, who literally will probably be significantly involved in the selection of your next president. I could never have dreamed that I'd have all these opportunities. But what I learned from all of these men is, in essence, is this. You can only be enriched by enriching the lives of others. You can only be enriched by sharing your time, your treasure, most importantly, your knowledge and your passion with others. And I have learned this lesson from these wonderful men, and I am blessed to have learned it. Every year when we give out those awards to the seniors, I think the influence that we're all as a group giving those young kids and where they're taking that. The 88 team is proof of that. I mean, what happened with them back in 1988 and the way they were coached and the way they were mentored, they're still living today. So grab a kid, share your time, share your passion, share your knowledge, make the world a better place.
Standing ovation for my dear friend, Marchand. That's going to wrap it up with the exception of a few announcements. I want to give our best wishes to Bob Cross, who's home with an ailment in his back and was unable to attend. Morgana, the event coordinator for this event here tonight of this hotel, was very helpful. Jack Selly, LATV, Jane Pasco, and a special thanks to Gabe and Kathy at Mark's office helping us put all this stuff together. And I'd like to acknowledge my wife for letting me participate in all this stuff. Thank you, Maureen. Okay, everyone, we'll see you next year. Certificates, if any players are still here, there's a certificate that we didn't give you when you walked by. Please come up, recognize your name, and take it. Put it in one of these folders, and you're out of here. Oh, yeah.